Flaming skull.
What is going on, guys? What is going on? Welcome to this week's episode of the STS Guys, episode 70. I am Jeremy.
Hey, it's Larry.
Hey guys, it's Nate.
And I'm Scott.
And this week we have a special guest coming all the way from, I think it's Chandler? Awatuki?
No, it's London, man.
Yeah, I'm in London right now.
Yeah.
British correspondent Chris. What is going on?
Hey guys. Thanks for having
I'm actually really excited that Bears and Tanks has joined us. If you have not checked out his channel, check him out. Chris is a good friend of the podcast.
There's nothing on it.
I know.
Sometimes he does live streams of video games, and when he does, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
there are some very entertaining Dishonored ones that were on there.
I put a link in the notes, but yeah, look, you haven't made a video in 5 months, so that's okay.
So
that's okay.
If you want to see someone rage out over Last Guardian, this is the guy that you want to watch.
That is some of the most entertaining live stream I've ever seen. It is really great.
Yeah,
it left a sour taste in my mouth.
I couldn't tell. At all. Yeah, Chris plays the Guardian, and he comes to some points that are, let's just say, very frustrating.
It was the most entertaining thing to watch a person who is normally calm and collected rage out over a giant computerized dog thing. Cat dog ish dragon thing.
Oh, it's causing just thinking about it.
Yeah. He's like, I'm getting flashbacks.
So, as far as everything goes, like I said, we normally ask, what has been going on this week. I am excited to hear about your guys' week because I wasn't a part of it for the first time. So, this week's episode is brought to you by Ozarka Sparkling Water. No Costco water for me because there's not a Costco nearby.
I actually don't have a Kirkland water with me. That's a first.
Whoa.
Bam!
There we go.
I got
Larry's bringing
it
in the Kirkland.
Larry for the save. So what have been going on this week, guys? What have you guys been doing?
It's been a week, guys.
Yeah, it's been a week. I feel like the "it's been a week" has been our standard intro whenever we actually don't really have anything going on. Like, oh, it's been a week. Let's tell you while I stall and think about something.
Keeps people intrigued until they realize we have nothing to talk about.
Right.
Well, you guys actually did some cool stuff. You guys actually did some cool shit this week, though.
Well, I think we did. So
you did. I want to get into it. Outside of kind of, I know Larry and Chris's major contribution here. Was there anything outside of that really came up that really needs our attention? Because I can't think of anything other than Sunday and Monday's activities. Jeremy, you've been gone for so long. What is happening in your world? That's what I'm trying to say. Damn it!
Like I said, I just got back from a week-long stay in sunny or more like rainy and foggy this week, Palo Alto, California. So I am now officially relocated to Texas, and so I am in Austin, Texas now.
Crazy. Our first ever. So episode 70 is our first multi-state podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're taking this.
It's currently. So I'm not used to this whole time change thing yet either, and so it's 10:04 p.m.
Yeah. Weird.
We're gonna take this remote thing as far as we can go.
Hey,
it's gonna keep going farther and farther every time.
I don't think so.
No,
probably not.
I'm not going anywhere.
No. But as far as like I said, I was just with the new transition to the new job. I was in training all week, and like I said, I'm glad to be back. Like I said, it didn't get back till about 2 a.m. this morning. So some weather delays because of the FAA and some of the different weather that was going on. But it is good to be back in my temporary home until we get into our new house. Well, speaking of that, shout out to Todd Bergner Real Estate. Said he definitely hooked us up with some awesome services. Like I said, he is probably one of the best realtors that I've ever worked with. So if you're in the Austin area, definitely look up Todd Bergner Realty.
Nice. Yeah, from what you told me, he was very attentive, showed you all kinds of stuff because you only had a limited time to really see a house, right?
Yeah, like I said, he was great. Like I said, got us into this awesome house. I can't wait to move. Like I said, we move here in a couple of weeks, so we're only in the corporate housing here for a couple of weeks. So it couldn't have worked out any better. So thank you, Todd, for definitely helping out.
Shout out to Todd.
Shout out to Todd. But okay, enough about me. Like I said, I didn't have an interesting week. I want to hear about Royal Rumble.
Yep. So last weekend, WWE rolled into town. They brought NXT, they brought Raw, they brought SmackDown, but the main event, they brought their pay-per-view, Royal Rumble, which is why we have Chris, Bears and Tanks, on the podcast today, because I was able to go to Royal Rumble. Unfortunately, Jeremy wasn't able to go because of the whole California thing. But Chris was also able to go. So Chris and I are going to try to recap a little bit, tell you guys about the WWE events we went to, because in addition to the actual wrestling live shows, they had their own little convention thing too, Royal Rumble Axxess, which I was able to go to. But I guess we should just start off with the main thing, man. Like Sunday afternoon rolled around and it was Royal Rumble.
Well, real quick before we get into that, so Chris, you also went to NXT, didn't you? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Just because, like I said, I am not
chronological order, sure.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, because I from everything I've heard, like that was kind of one of the, I don't want to say more exciting events, but kind of the more kind of thrilling event. Like, so I'm kind of curious as to how that went.
Yeah, sure. I can tell you that. But go on, Jeremy. I think you were
No. I was going to say because I'm not as big of a wrestling fan as anybody here else is on the podcast, and I was definitely going to be originally tagging on to Royal Rumble just to kind of just kind of experience itself. So I'm not familiar with what NXT is. So like I said, just enlighten me with the regales of your adventure.
So, very long story short, NXT started off as like a smaller developmental brand for the WWE 5 or 6 years ago. It was originally called something else. They changed to NXT, and the whole idea was that there wasn't anywhere for new guys to come in and learn. And there was one case where they had this really prolific Mexican wrestler come in who didn't learn to speak English, didn't learn the style, didn't integrate well, and they were basically just kind of, they have a style in WWE that they want everybody to adhere to. They want people to know how to play to the cameras, how to play to the crowds, all that kind of stuff. So they set up NXT. Maybe 2 or 3 years after that, they started signing really big independent named stars. And it's got to the stage now where there's some real kind of star power in this developmental brand, which just isn't developmental anymore. So they have a reputation for having better planned out shows, better planned out storylines, more technically interesting matches. And it's kind of like the hardcore brand really for, the die-hard fans more than anything. So when WWE have their big events, so the 5 big events of the year, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, and Survivor Series, there's usually an NXT show the night before. And the show's shorter. They have 5 matches instead of 10, 11, 12. And these matches are usually the culmination of 1 or 2 month storylines rather than just something that's been cooked up in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So, the Royal Rumble weekend, in terms of wrestling, started with NXT, was at the Talking Stick Arena, which is where the Suns play. Capacity of like 8,000 or 9,000, so not a huge arena. Some of it was all tarped off. But yeah, there was only 5 matches, so definitely didn't get the kind of level of burnout that we got the next night, which I'm sure we'll get onto. And the whole show lasted 2.5, 3 hours, and each of the matches was pretty good. The one in particular that really stood out was Ricochet and Johnny Gargano. There's been this really long storyline for a while now about this once pure, white meat babyface good guy who has kind of like descended into being evil and conniving and stuff to try and beat his rival, who is the champion currently. And they had this a match that lasted 30, 35 minutes, so quite a long time, but was just really engaging, really thrilling. The other guy he was fighting, Ricochet, is one of the most technically gifted athletes, not just wrestlers, but acrobatic athletes in the world. The stuff he does is absolutely crazy. And it was just great. And because it's a smaller crowd with a smaller venue, the atmosphere and the vibe was just incredible. And the reactions, all the crowd was kind of feeding off each other, and the reactions and the atmosphere, that was great. So it was just a really good start to the weekend. It was like every match kind of delivered it to at least the standard you would expect it to. There was one of the matches was kind of only had a couple of weeks to develop, but it was a really good event, and the tickets were so much cheaper than the for the Royal Rumble as well. I picked up really good seats for about $50. So if NXT is ever in your area, then it's definitely worth checking out.
Nice. Is that your first time going to an NXT event?
No, I actually went to one in England when they first toured the UK about 3 years ago. And at the time, when we went to see that, it wasn't televised. It was just a small tour, but it was full of people who now are on the main roster in WWE. So Finn Balor, Sami Zayn, Bayley, Alexa Bliss, Gable and Jordan, Baron Corbin. There's probably a bunch of others I'm forgetting, but it's kind of reassuring that like a couple of years later, all of those people, whilst they might not be all the top stars yet, they're all being used, and that kind of system is working where they're moving people through and up onto the main roster as well.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you see a lot of these guys from NXT, excuse me, eventually make it into the Royal Rumble or into those bigger, I guess, storylines.
Yeah, there's a bit of a mix, really. It's been very hit or miss because the people who control and run NXT are linked, but are not always the exact same people who do the rest of the stuff. So sometimes people come up and they were a champion and they, had a really good crowd reaction, really good character, and they come up and they're just used really poorly. And one example of that, or two examples of that really, would be Bobby Roode and Shinsuke Nakamura, who are both the NXT champions and both were on the pre-show of the Royal Rumble. They weren't, well, Nakamura was in the Royal Rumble itself as well, but you've got two of the biggest, champions of the brand, and they're not really being used at the moment. So sometimes it doesn't work. But then you look at some other guys like Finn Balor fought Brock Lesnar. Seth Rollins is one of the main guys. He was the first NXT champion. Sometimes it's just a bit of a slow burn to kind of get them up and through, and it's a very different audience as well. So there might be a character that really works or a performer that really works down there to a different audience, and then they come up and you're on TV, you're appealing to a nationwide, very general audience, and sometimes it just doesn't pan out.
That's interesting.
I'll say, yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, it's almost like a cactus league or like a minor league for the wrestling. Like that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I guess it's got college football as well. That like for some people, that's where the real action's at.
Yeah, because those are the guys that are really hungry for it, and they're really trying hard to get to that next level. So everybody's competing at a higher level. Sometimes in those smaller matches like that.
Well, and it's good to be able to have a group that you can go to as kind of like your tryout for the big times, not just like having to get discovered somewhere. You actually have a set path that you can go to try to see, like, can I make it in the big leagues, or hey, maybe I'm fine being successful in this, but there's not a huge variance in things, right?
Yeah,
like you have.
It's changed over time too, because when it started, it very much was there were some people there who they'd never wrestled before. It was the first place they went, but now it's become like, because of the fact that it has these better storylines and it's matches that deliver and everything, it's become like the hot brand where there's a lot of people who want to go there and maybe don't want to go to the main roster because they don't want. These guys are based in Florida and they spend a lot of time. They have like a performance center down there that's like a super training center, and they spend a lot of time in one place. As soon as you're on the main roster, you're traveling, you're on the road 200 or 300 days a year, wrestling 5 nights a week, sometimes in like small towns and everything. And some of the guys just don't want that travel and don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of commitment. Larry, did you get to go to the NXT, or you just went to a Royal Rumble?
Yeah, I just went to Royal Rumble, but I've never really watched NXT. Chris speaks highly of it. to me before too. Like like you said, like sometimes it has better storylines and all that too. So it's something I definitely want to check out. Like I'm still learning about it too. And really, just the past couple of weeks, I figured out that a lot of the main guys, you know, on the real WWE roster, were in NXT, like Chris was saying, like you know, just a year or two or pretty recently. So I don't know, it's pretty intriguing. Something I probably should check out a little bit more.
And it's really accessible too. It's the weekly show is on Hulu, so
that's
perfect.
Awesome.
And it's 1 hour a week. One of the major problems with the main roster is you've got 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown. Who's got 5 hours a week? But Hulu does condensed versions of both of those as well. So
cool. I did not know that.
No, good call. Yeah,
that is definitely a good tip.
Yeah, that was one of my issues with Raw. Like I was trying to get caught up. I'm like, all right, Royal Rumble's coming. I've known about this for like almost a year. I'm like, I'm gonna get into this before because I really want to go check this out. But man, it's just I don't have 5 hours a week to watch Raw and SmackDown. But an hour a week, that's way more reasonable.
That's a big commitment, 5 hours a week. And if you miss 1 week, then you got to make up 10, you know, and then it just compounds. So it's hard to stay behind like that. So Chris, you said you went to an NXT event before. How does this one compare?
It was on a different scale. So the one I went to, and a very different crowd as well. So UK crowds UK wrestling crowds are notorious for being rambunctious, shall we say. So there was one part when we went to see it in England where the audience was chanting a lot of soccer chants, become kind of used and appropriated by the wrestling crowds. And there was one tag team that people were chanting for so much that they stopped the match for 10 minutes to kind of play to the crowd. Obviously they can't do that on a televised show. So I think in terms of the overall quality, I was in the first row as well for that. So that was like really cool.
Oh, wow.
On the floor, right there, right next to people. And seeing wrestling up close is really fun. And it makes it, you know, it's a really different experience. But like from overall kind of quality as well, they don't, on shows like that aren't televised, they don't pay off storylines. It's just, this person against this person, and they'll have a fun and very different match to what you might see on TV. So overall, if I had to pick between the two, the one last week was really good. It's probably the better one.
Awesome.
I love the fact that you just clued me in the fact that there are not only like the football hooligans, but they are wrestling hooligans too. Like that is amazing.
I just said the fans, the wrestling fans. They don't fight amongst themselves much, a little bit. But.
So it's not like mosh pit style.
No, not really. Well, sometimes.
Nice. So that was the night before the main event, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Now, Larry, you went to Axxess, right? So, which is like the convention.
It's like their Comic-Con-ish, right? Convention for WWE.
One thing here, Larry. Now that convention travels with them, though, right? Like, does it only show up at Royal Rumbles, or does it go to other events as well?
So it's hit or miss, right? Like it's really a WrestleMania thing. I think they had it at SummerSlam one time. And I think they had it at one other Royal Rumble. I'm not sure. Like I think it was SummerSlam actually. So it's really just a WrestleMania thing. So the fact that it was here was really kind of special. So maybe they're trying to expand it or something. I don't know. I don't know all the logistics behind it, but like those tickets went on sale a couple weeks ago. I scooped up premium VIP for Sunday morning. So headed over there before the Royal Rumble. But it was pretty cool. I bought, like, when you bought the VIP or premium VIPs, you got to pick a wrestler who you were guaranteed to meet and get a picture and autograph with. So I did the one with Bailey and Sasha Banks. So I got 2 for 1. I felt like it was kind of a good deal. So I was able to get 2 autographs, get a picture with both of them. It was really cool. They're super awesome, super nice, super pretty. And then like the rest of the convention is just autographs and photos. Like there's 2 autograph stations and 2 photo stations and a pretty big line in both that just kind of snakes around. So yeah, if you're into photo ops, if you're into autographs, it was definitely worthwhile. It's kind of weird because it's only 4-hour sessions, which initially I'm like, why? Like Saturday they have 2 sessions, so it's like 8 to noon, and then they kick everybody out, and then they do another one from like 1 to 5 or something. I'm like, that's weird. I don't like that. It's $45. Like, I'm not paying $45 for this. But after I went and realized what you get, like, if you're into taking pictures with people, or if you're really into autographs, it's totally worth it. Because I got my Sasha Banks Bailey picture, right? I did that first, of course. And then I went over to one of the other photo sessions, and I got pictures with the Riot Squad, all 3 girls. I got a picture with Samoa Joe. I got a picture with some other guy who I don't remember his name. But right, I got, within like 2 hours, I got four photo ops, 3 of which were freebies. Like, if you were at any other convention, what's the cheapest photo op? Like $20?
Right.
Like, so,
Yeah, right.
Easily 20 to 30 bucks.
So
I was just going to ask if they were charging you individually, but no, all that was included.
Yep. All the stuff at the freebie stations was included. So once you got in, the only thing that was extra was the VIP, which you would have had to pre-buy anyhow. So yeah, you really, like, the only bad part is, like, you don't exactly get to pick who you get to see in those stations. But if you're a big wrestling fan, like, you probably don't mind seeing any of those people. I thought it was pretty cool. I lucked out. There were a couple that I knew, so I stood in that line and got my picture taken, and I headed home. And it was a good time. I definitely, like I said, I hesitated on the value, but I think it's there because you can, if you do it right, you can go home with a ton of photos and probably get a couple autographs too, just for your $45 ticket.
That is kind of cool that those are all included with, we'll say, price of admission, right? Like, not many conventions or anything would ever do that, because I mean, that's where those guys are making their money. But I guess if they're coming in with that WWE show, this is just kind of their good way to meet the fans beforehand.
Yeah, it's the goodwill thing, part of their job, really, at that point.
Mm-hmm. Now, Larry, I said, so in terms of your autographs, I said, were they pops that you got autographs?
Yeah, so the reason I chose the Bailey and Sasha Banks one is they both had pops, so I got my 2 pops signed.
So nice. What is your official signed pop count up to now? Because, like I said, you've been racking them up lately.
You know what, dude? I don't even know.
What is your wrestling signed pop count up to?
I think it's the majority of his signed stuff is probably from wrestling. If I had to guess,
it is the last bunch of them that you've had.
6, I guess. I think I've got 6 wrestling pops. I've got at least 5 other pops, and I'm probably forgetting about something. So I'm probably around a dozen without really trying too hard.
Now, Larry, you did forget one of the best photo ops that we saw while trolling through those photos of different people that were available out there. It was those life-size cutouts of all the kind of, we'll say, superstar, I think, is not the right term for it. Is there anything? What is classic? Like, what's above superstar? Like legends, I guess.
Yeah.
You're very on brand, Scott, because the current people are called superstars and the old people are called legends.
Yeah. And you know what?
Just like guessing. Hooray!
Yes. And at WWE Royal Rumble Axxess, you could get your picture taken with cardboard cutouts of legends and current superstars, if that's your thing. It's not my thing.
I know a bunch of people we saw pictures was like, is that the Ultimate Warrior? I was like, like, what the hell is that? And there's like, oh, there's these cardboard cutouts just like strewn about the convention.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if one of your favorite ever wrestlers is dead, then
the
best you're gonna get.
Right.
There you go. True.
The Ultimate Warrior anybody was going to get to this weekend. So.
Yeah.
True. That is cool, though.
So it sounds like it was worth going to, Larry. But to your point, Scott, about when do they have these? Larry's right that they're usually just WrestleMania, and the reason for that is WrestleMania is usually the only event that they stay in town for a week for. And it's quite unusual for this that they had a show on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday all in the same place. I mean, obviously it was at Chase Field rather than Talking Stick for the Royal Rumble, but they're like 300 meters away from each other. Really close. And was it at the convention center, Larry? Axxess?
Yep, which is right across the street from Talking Stick.
Yeah. So I don't think there's many places you could go to where there's all those venues like right next to each other for them to make it worth doing it.
I didn't realize that it was at 3 different that this was held at 3 different event locations. I mean, yeah, they are a rock throw away from each other, but it is cool that throughout the nights they actually had rented out those different places.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, if you're a fan of wrestling I mean, this is a great place to go to see all your favorite wrestlers and get those autographs and, you know, the pictures, because they don't, I don't know, not being a huge wrestling fan, I can't remember the last time wrestling was in town. So how often does this really happen?
So Raw and SmackDown, Raw or SmackDown, tend to come around maybe once a year. So they were last here in like I want to say like July for a night, and then they were off somewhere else, you know. But the weekly shows really hit and miss in terms of the quality of what you're going to get for the Raw or SmackDown. Some weeks you'll go and there'll just be nothing interesting happen. And then one time I went in England, it was like The Undertaker came back for the first time in 2 years or something, just on this random Monday show, and it was great. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I think the tickets are a little cheaper for when they come around just to do Raw and SmackDown. You know, you can get them for like $20 or something. So
yeah, I guess the big thing this weekend was really the Royal Rumble, because that's a little bit more rare.
So I didn't remember it, but I guess the Royal Rumble was here one other time too. And a couple years ago, we had WrestleMania too. They had WrestleMania at the Cardinals Stadium, so they must like Phoenix at least a little bit for those pay-per-views.
Come back every couple of years.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, for January though, come on, like our weather is perfect.
Yeah,
true.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
It makes sense.
Yeah, but it's not like they're wrestling outside. Like they're in a convention hall.
I know, but you get travelers from all over the world coming for this event. Like it's a tourist thing, right? It's not just locals who are going. Like people came for this. Like I saw people on Instagram posted up pictures. They were at Axxess. Because Axxess was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They were at Axxess all 3 days. They went to NXT, they went to Royal Rumble, then they went to Raw and SmackDown. Like they made a weekend out of it, man. So if you're coming from, you know, well, Chris came from England to go to WrestleMania one time, right? Like you make that big trip, you're doing everything you can possibly do.
Yeah, to Larry's point, a lot of people that I follow on Instagram and people that I know that don't live in the state were here for the event, which was really surprising because I didn't think it was going to be as widespread as it was. But there are a lot of people there.
Well, and I guess kind of thinking about it, they have those kind of ticket packages where you could buy kind of like a all-in-one shot of like, okay, this gets you access to every event plus the thing, and here's a meet and greet, and they had breakfast, and like they really cater for people to come in and you know.
And some of the travel packages include hotels as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were like, we didn't have to think about it, right? Because we lived here, but they were kind of reasonable. They weren't too bad.
No, it was one of those things that at first Larry and I were like, oh, those are unreasonable. And then we started going through like, oh, you get like first 20 rows or whatever for every event.
Yep.
Early access, food like covered. We started going through. We're like, that's actually well worth it for the ticket prices. It was actually impressive.
Yep.
So regarding the main event, I think let's move into the actual Royal Rumble itself. And I'm really curious about the venue because like I said, you were saying in regards to kind of this is almost a first in regards to like using a baseball stadium just for kind of the specific size of Royal Rumble. So how was Chase Field as a venue to hold this event?
Chris's face showed everything.
Yeah. I think you're right, Jeremy. It's the first time they've ever done an event like this at a baseball field. They have done events at bigger venues than this. So they did it at the what's the super big one in Texas called? They're like 100,000 people or something. You know, they've done events at bigger places than this before, but they've never done it at a baseball field. To watch it back on TV, you can't really tell. Other when they do the flyovers and everything, it looks just like the camera setup's all the same and everything. It looks just like a regular show. As somebody who kind of went and watched it, we had reasonably good seats. I think Larry was the same. We were on the second tier in the first row, and so no view obstruction really to speak of. But you're just a little too far away, and then we ended up spending most of the time watching it on the TVs. And they had this special kind of setup because it was kind of in the middle of the field. At the back of the field or the outfield, there was nothing. They just had the hard camera set up and there wasn't really much in the way of seating there. But they had this big kind of rig with big lighting bars on it. And it kind of didn't matter where you sat. Once you reached a certain height, at least one of the lights would be really bright and shining straight on your section. So your view is kind of obscured for a lot of it. I spend a lot of the time, even though they had the roof closed, wearing my sunglasses because it was just so bright, just to kind of cut down on some of that glare. So it was one of those events, I think, that like I absolutely wouldn't have missed the chance to go. Royal Rumble's always been my favorite of the events because it's just stupid in a fun way. But looking back on it, I would have enjoyed it just as much having watched it on TV, I think, than being there. I think if you were really close, and that's the same everywhere, but there were people up in the nosebleeds as well on the third tier, like really far away. You wouldn't have seen anything.
Yeah. So in regards to, it seems kind of weird how it would have been set up in terms of like, cause I know the entries of a lot of the wrestlers are kind of like, hey, that's really part of the show too. So did you get a good look at basically the actual wrestlers coming in, or were you above that section where you didn't really see that?
So Larry was above they came in through one of the dugouts and had a ramp that was straight down to the ring. So usually just have one that comes straight down to the side. This kind of curled around a little bit. I was on above the opposite dugout, so we could kind of see people coming in, but not really.
Yeah, same. Like once I couldn't see them walk out, but once they you always take a couple steps out, then you do your little pose or whatever before you walk down the rest of the runway. I could see when they got to their stopping point and did their little move. So I had a pretty good view. But like you're looking at like the top of their head and then their back like most of the time, but it was okay.
Well, I think that's the problem with using specifically a baseball stadium. I know that it works well as being kind of round, and it's bigger than like most traditional like hockey or basketball arenas. But it's so like spread out, and you're kind of that weird bowl shape that I think does like even once you get to a certain set of seats, something so specific like this and so detailed. Just looking at some of the pictures that people had, it almost seems like I was going to be watching like the Jumbotron more than you could see that, like what was going on in the ring. Even when, like you said, a couple, a tier up on that second tier.
And one of the other major side effects and drawbacks of doing it in such a big arena is that the sound just goes up into the air. It's so big that the sound just dissipates. So it sounds a lot of the time like there's no atmosphere. And the crowd that I was in, the section I was in, was really lively. We were, we really engaged, shouting and everything else. When you watch it back on TV, that doesn't really come across at all because it just kind of goes to nothing.
Yeah, you're
previous events.
Right. You're so far away from where the actual ring and mic and cameras are. Yeah.
And
it's almost too big.
And because of the size and the speed of sound and everything, sometimes reactions come too late.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, it's like it's too big for its own good. Like Scott said, I mean, I get they're trying to cram as many people as possible in there, but it's not really designed to project the sound and carry the light like it really should for an event like this.
And let's not pretend that this is sport, right? This is entertainment, so it's presented in a very different way normally. There's microphones. It's funny. There's microphones under the ring to make the slams sound bigger, but when you're that far away, that was what we could hear. We could hear the slams because they came through the speakers, but nothing else.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was weird.
That's too bad. I mean, like you said, you're far enough away to where it's already hard to see, but then you got these lights shining at you. You're excited to be there, but then you're like, man, I just wish this was a little bit better for me to make my experience just that much better,
And that was the major difference with NXT. We had we got the front row on the first tier for that as well. I like to kind of be up high and be able to see things, but we were so much closer to it, and everything was just so much more in your face and apparent. They don't always go to places this big for these events. It's usually WrestleMania, maybe Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. And they always lie about the capacity as well, like the attendance. They always inflate the attendance figures, but the attendance they reported was 48,000 people.
Wow.
And even if it wasn't quite that many, I wouldn't doubt that it was above 40,000 people. The place I was surprised by how full it was, actually. There was some seats in the nosebleeds that were empty, but compared to the other things that I've been to at Chase Field or at Talking Stick as well, when I've seen the Suns play, there were very few kind of empty seats and sections that weren't really well occupied.
Yeah, I was just going to ask how sold out it was.
Yeah, like Chris said, like I've been to Chase Field more times than I can possibly count. And really, like there were a few seats up at the very, very top of the upper deck that were empty, but like everything I could see, I was super surprised how packed it was. So they did a good job.
Well, good. They finally filled that to capacity.
Yeah.
Not since 2001 when the Diamondbacks were in the World Series.
Yeah,
It took a non-Diamondbacks event to sell every seat, or at least most of them.
At least, I was gonna say, at least someone can get that stadium to fill up.
That's sad.
It does make you think about how much they take on the gate, though, because our tickets were, before you get into booking fees and all that other kind of junk, they were $150 each. You know, so and on average, I would say tickets were between very, very average, including the cheapest and the most expensive, were probably $100. So you're talking a lot of money just on the gate alone.
Wow.
So now, in terms of like the event itself, so like just so that way, because I'm gonna lie here. This is why I'm kind of sad that I missed the event. I've never seen a Royal Rumble match in my entire life, and I was actually really excited to actually go. I'm kind of sad that it didn't work out. But just can you kind of explain kind of what it's all about and kind of what the atmosphere is like there in regards to the actual show itself?
Yeah, so the Royal Rumble is the first big pay-per-view event of the year, and it's basically the storyline premise of it is that there's this Royal Rumble event, which is people take turns in coming to the ring, and it's an over-the-top battle royal. So people keep coming out to the ring, and they're eliminated when they go over the top and land on the floor, and then they're out. And basically, the last person who's in wins the chance to have a title match at WrestleMania. So that's it in theory. Whereas, like in practice, there'll be like shenanigans between now and WrestleMania where somebody who won maybe loses their title shot or whatever. And there's also lots of silly stuff that happens. Like the rules are really specific. You need to be knocked over the top and both feet hit the floor. So they play a lot of things off that. Like there's somebody who, there's one guy, Kofi Kingston, who every year has like these crazy spots where he like goes out but doesn't quite touch the floor and like uses some acrobatic stuff to get back to the ring and stuff. And you know, it's fun and silly, but it's one of the few events where like practically everybody gets, you see like nearly all of the people who are like on the roster. There's usually some surprise returns, you know, where you get like an old guy who comes back for 5 minutes and gets knocked out. It's just kind of like the most fun event, I think, of everything. All the other ones are always like really serious and there's matches that are paying off storylines. This is just like you get some confrontations that you would just never really see, where this small insignificant guy's fighting some big name guy and they're just like punching each other in the corner and throwing each other out and stuff. It's just fun and stupid, really.
That's amazing. I'm gonna relate it to today's youth. So what you're saying is it's like the Fortnite of it's like the Fortnite of wrestling.
Yeah, that's right.
Anything goes. Well, and the fun part too is, as of last year, there's 2 Royal Rumble matches. There's a women's and a men's, so you get double the Rumble.
That's right. And the women's this year was much better than last year. So last year they, it's the first time they'd done a women's event. I think they were a little stretched to actually find 30 women to be in it. So they pulled back a lot of like old retired female wrestlers that got, you know, a good reaction, but didn't really contribute much. And there's this whole thing, like the rules are you need to go over the top to be eliminated. And there were people who kept just like rolling underneath and like lying down outside for a few minutes and then coming back in. So this year was pretty good, but there was still, for the women's one, there's always some surprise entrants. And to your point earlier, Nate, there's usually a couple of people from NXT who turn up and like, oh, this great person from NXT's come. There were more of those in the women's event than the men's because they're still trying to build a good women's roster. It's getting there, but it's going to take a little while still yet. But the women's Royal Rumble was really good this year. The only kind of complaint I had about it is one of the most fun things about the Royal Rumble is that new people come out every 90 seconds and there's a big countdown on the screen that counts down from 10. So everyone's like 10, 9, 8, and you know, seeing who the next person that comes out is. A few of the women's eliminations happened during that countdown. So everybody's like counting down and looking for who's coming out. And then somebody gets knocked out of the ring and you've not been paying attention. You focus on the ring again. It's like, oh, where did that person go? And then it's only when I watched it back on TV that it's like, oh, they got, you know, because there's no instant replay when you're watching it there. They don't show the feed of what they're showing on at home with the replays and everything. They're just showing the cameras as they are there. So if you miss something, you've missed it.
Yeah, it's like, wait, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, that happened to me a lot. Like I was following along good for a while, and then I just got lost. I'm like, all right, so I guess I'm just gonna wait till the end and see who's left in the ring, and then I'll start paying more attention. But yeah, like Chris said, like one of my favorite parts was the countdown, just the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. for the buzzer, and it was awesome.
Now, were there any big surprises? Like I said, this year, like I said, was there a comeback from someone? Because I was, did an old retired wrestler come back, or like
not really. There was only one. So the only one was a guy who was second, a guy called Jeff Jarrett, who, for long and story short, left years ago, set up what is now Impact Wrestling, ran it into the ground a bit, sold it to somebody else, came back on reasonable terms last year. And anyway, his whole shtick was that he was a musician, and there's this current guy who's a musician. So he started in the ring. And then the second guy comes in and they're going to do a song together, and one gets hit with a guitar and all that kind of stuff. So he was the only real one. And some people didn't like that and complained about the fact online. I read a bunch of stuff saying, oh, there wasn't enough returning superstars. There wasn't enough of the surprises that we expected. But the fact is there's so many talented people on the roster now. I'd rather see somebody who doesn't get a chance all the time get a chance to come and, show what they're worth, rather than just getting some old guy come out for 2 minutes who you're never going to see again.
That's a good point. And it sounds like, if anything, it's nonstop action. So it keeps you engaged from that standpoint. Like, who's going to be next? Who's going to be the next guy to come up on stage? Is there anybody in particular that you were really wanting to see?
In the Women's Royal Rumble, the main person I wanted to see was the person who eventually won it, Becky Lynch. She'd been in a match earlier in the night and lost. And so usually if you've already had a match, you're not in the Royal Rumble. But they've been building this storyline where she's kind of the main character of the brand at the moment, men and women. And they're building towards a fight between her and Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. And so when she came out towards the end, there were shenanigans involved, and somebody else got injured and couldn't make it to the ring. And she came out, her music hit, and everyone just went nuts. That was one of the highlights of the whole event. And then in terms of the men's, there wasn't really anyone. There was a couple of people I'd really hoped to see from the night before, because we knew that a couple of NXT people were going to be in. So we really wanted to see Ricochet, who I think this time next year will definitely be in it, and he'll be doing some of the craziest stuff that you'll see all the flipping around the ring and everything. There's this other guy in NXT who's getting really big at the moment called the Velveteen Dream. He's kind of like a cross between Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, and Prince. And he's really, really cool. And we were hoping he didn't wrestle the night before, and it's all part of a bigger storyline at the moment. So we were hoping that he might be in it, but he wasn't. So it was a bit of a shame. But the couple of NXT guys who were in it were really good too.
Nice.
Can I say I don't even know what this guy looks like, but based on name and description, I just found my favorite wrestler of all time.
He is great.
Dream.
He actually started they had a reality show a few years ago called Tough Enough, where like 10 guys and 10 girls went through a weekly elimination, and one of them was offered a contract at the end. And he didn't win, but he was the only guy in it who, like, a lot of them were just kind of like, oh, I used to be a football player, or I'm an MMA guy, and I just basically were in it for the money and the chance to be on TV. And he was the only guy who was just like, I love wrestling. I've loved it forever. And he was like 19 at the time. He's like 22 or 23 now, and he's already had a couple of main event matches at NXT shows, and he's great. So if everything goes well for him, hopefully in a few years, he'll be a common name.
That's cool. Yeah, like you said, guys that you get familiar with in NXT that you eventually, hopefully, will see, in the big show. So it sounds like that might be one of them.
In terms of keeping engaged, though, you were right before about the whole in the Royal Rumble. You kept really engaged because you've got this 90-second thing, and there's always something new and always, someone else coming out. In terms of the event as a whole, though, it's just too long. But we arrived at 7 and didn't leave till after 10. Arrived at 3 and didn't leave till after 10. It was like 7 hours.
Wow, that is a long time.
That is really long for a non-sporting event. Like, even most sports are 4 hours at a maximum.
Yeah, and is there night as well?
Is there a lot of stuff in between each match? Like, so after Royal Rumble's done and then they do something else, is there stuff that goes on in between that does take up a lot of time, or is it always wrestling?
It's pretty much all wrestling. The main show itself actually was 5 hours long. So the 2 hours beforehand, that they do a lot of stuff to try and sell the show to people at home. So there's like a pre-show where they it's free on YouTube. They'll put a couple of matches on there that are kind of inconsequential for the most part, and then the main event itself starts. But the Royal Rumbles themselves, both of them were about an hour long, so they took up a good, nearly half of the total runtime. But pretty much on a card like this, where they had about 6 or 7 other matches as well, you finish the Royal Rumble and then straight away there's another match. Then there's another match, and then there's another. It's the downtime between things is a couple of minutes at most.
Yeah. After the first match of the real show, right? It was the Becky Lynch match. We went and got food, so we missed the entire. What was it? It was tag team with Miz and Shane McMahon. But we left as soon as the first match was over, and we got back to our seats. Like by the time that Shane McMahon match was over, but like we missed the entire thing just trying to go get food. Like we like Chris said, we were in the second deck. We went down to the first deck, had to go all the way back up. But like it's so bang bang. Like there is no break to go to the bathroom. There is no break to go get food. You're probably going to miss something. Oh, and huge miss on I don't know WWE or Chase Field on the second level. On all of the TVs on the concourse, they were showing what was happening in the ring. On the first level, none of the TVs that are around, like at the food stations, were showing the Royal Rumble. I had no idea what was going on while I was waiting to get my pizza. Not cool.
Which doesn't make any sense. Like, why wouldn't you broadcast that to encourage people? Like, hey, go buy some concessions.
It was just it was just like it was WWE footage. It was like a highlight reel or a commercial or whatever. Like it was so dumb.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask, is that speed of kind of the in between of all the matches, is that a symptom of it being basically a pay-per-view, or is that kind of a standard with wrestling?
So it is kind of like a standard that there isn't really anything other than that. I mean, I guess when you have the weekly shows on TV, there's not as many matches. So there'll be more like, I'm coming out to talk trash about someone for 15 minutes and, oh no, I've been hit by a chair. There's that kind of thing. But the whole idea, one of the issues with wrestling now is that it's still stuck in this model that's 15 to 20 years out of date, where we all still call them pay-per-views, but they're not pay-per-views anymore. Nobody's paying $50 to watch this show at home because they have their own, they like to think of it as wrestling Netflix, but it's, it's not as good as Netflix, but it's $10 a month and you get the show that would have cost you $50 for free. So they already kind of have a captive audience for the most part, but the time, they're always limited by like the time that they have at the arena. So, they have to finish the show, whatever the curfew is, and they always want to try and pay off all of these matches. So they, on all of these events and all these feuds and everything. So they just try and cram as much as they can in there.
And my God, it was 7 hours with almost back to back. Like, like Chris said, like all the reviews or recaps and stuff I read online, the first thing everybody complained about was like, oh, it was just so long. And on a Sunday night, I wasn't ready for that. I knew it was going to be long, but man, it was rough.
Yeah, that's why I asked, like, is there anything in between? Because 7 hours seems like a long time. So maybe they're wasting time on like in between shows. But no, it sounds like it's just nonstop wrestling, which if you're into wrestling, that's cool. But man, 7 hours of anything is a lot.
Yeah, you get a lot.
And most of the stuff happens later on, like, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that happens at the beginning, but the big show is really what closes it out. And so you have to wait through all of
wrestling at the moment, Nate.
Oh, well done, Chris. Well done.
Looking back at the card, there's only one match really that I think you could have considered cutting, which was that Shane McMahon and Miz one. The others, though, you had the 2 Royal Rumbles, and then there's 2 championships for men and 2 for women, and that was all of the matches. So it's almost like you can't not put your big champions on because they're the faces of the brand, really. So there's not really a lot of content to cut out there. You can look at the match lengths and say, well, maybe they should have been shorter. Like the match I think that suffered the most in the night from a crowd reaction perspective was Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, who are 2 of the better wrestlers. But it was on straight after the Women's Royal Rumble, straight after Becky had won, and everybody was just pooped. And that match was 25 minutes, and it was just a little long. But doesn't really feel like there's a lot of other fat on the show that you could trim.
I agree. Right. The whole point of the pay-per-view style stuff was that's when all the championship matches were going to happen. Right. That's when Hulk Hogan beat Andre the Giant. That's when Hulk Hogan fought Ultimate Warrior. Like those were the big matches. You didn't get those on Saturday morning TV. You had to wait for the pay-per-view. So yeah, you have to have your women's titles. You have to have your men's.
And part of the problem now, though, is because as we talked about before, they've got this 5 hours of content to fill all the time. Most of the time now, you have seen some of these matches before already. So you make a really good point, Larry. When it was Hulk Hogan or Ultimate Warrior or whatever, those guys might have a stare down in the ring on TV, but they're never going to hit it. They're never going to fight. You build up the fervor for that for the pay-per-view. But now, like all of these matches I've seen AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan fight about 5 times now in the last 3 months alone. You know, it's some of it's kind of overplayed, but that's one of the reasons the Royal Rumble is so good is that the main part of the event, the Rumble itself, is pretty unique, and they do some smaller kind of battle royals, like there's one at WrestleMania for the guys who can't get on the card. But it's like the only time you really see this event in the year, so it's just a bit different.
Now, how many? Like I said, what was the top number of wrestlers? Like, how many wrestlers were in the ring at the same time? Like, what did it get up to before it just got nuts and insane, where people were getting knocked out?
I want to say it was probably at about. It kind of fluctuated throughout, and I think that at any one point towards the end there was maybe about 8 or 9 people from the 30, so something like that. But once you get too many, it's hard to. They all have to kind of stand in the corner and pretend to hit each other for a while.
Or like during the women's one, half the time that they were just laying on the ground, acting like they were hurt. Well, like 2 people fought. Yeah, like there'd be 6 people laying on the ground.
Because there's these main spots that they want you to watch, you know, because it's so choreographed that everybody else just kind of needs to stay out of the way for a while.
So what are you saying? Pretending to get hit, choreographed? Wrestling's real.
You know, see, the thing, I guess, and it's probably worth like just acknowledging this, that because I know that most of your audience probably isn't into wrestling or whatever. Everybody knows wrestling's fake and nobody cares. Like soap operas are fake, TV dramas are fake, but human drama is real. So like nobody goes thinking, and these guys do get hurt. You know, it's fake, it's choreographed, but it's very physical. And the rings themselves, they have a very thin layer of padding, and it's just wood. You know, these guys are covered in bruises. It's a hard thing, but like everybody knows it's fake. Everybody knows the outcome's planned and everything, but it's still real. Like when you're sat there watching it, and you know they're pulling on your strings, it's all puppeteering, and you know some of the reactions. My wife loves Seth Rollins. He's her absolute favorite. He came out to the Royal Rumble and she screeched like a 10-year-old girl. I've never heard her screech like that before. It was amazing. But like, what other kind of choreographed stuff elicits that kind of emotional response from people? It's great.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because even though everybody knows it's fake, it takes a certain level of skill and experience to be able to put on a show of that caliber and to do the moves that those guys do, because those are official moves. They have to know how to do it. They have to know how to take the hits correctly, how to land correctly. So there's a certain level of finesse that goes on in the background that these guys have to know what's going on and know what they're doing. So that in itself is impressive.
Hey, you know what's not fake though? The amount of money you can save if you shop at shumistore.com.
Oh boy.
You know what?
In all the shills.
Shumi's got WWE pops that you could buy right now if you go to shumistore.com and you can enter that code STS Guys to save 10%.
So I can go to shumi.com and get a discount by using this promo code.
Yes,
at
right.
shumistore.com. You can get Sergeant Slaughter. You can get Jake the Snake. You can get Shawn Michaels. You can get Triple H. You can get them all at shumistore.com.
Save 10% using STS Guys.
And then Shumi has the mint box guarantee. So not only do you buy the pop, you also get a pop protector with it absolutely free. So it's shipped inside the pop protector. So like I said, you can't ask for a better deal than that.
And if you're going to get an autographed pop like Larry, you want it to come pristine in mint. So shumistore.com is a great place to go to ensure that you get that pop in mint condition.
Yeah, you're not getting a shitty pop sign, like a box signed. Like you need that thing good.
It's true, man. It's true.
So if you guys had to rate it, like, what's your overall rating of the event? You know, just take the weekend in as a whole. What would you guys say? Something that you would definitely do again? You know, did you really like it? Give me a score here.
The Royal Rumble has been on my bucket list for years and years. So I've don't know why I'm getting into this now when you've asked me about rating it, but like my granddad was a professional wrestler, my grandfather, in his youth. So to me, like that, it's always been the coolest thing. And the Royal Rumble has always been like right up there. So I definitely wouldn't have missed it. I think in terms of like, would I go to an event that size again? No, I don't think so. I think I probably would have had a better time. Like last year, we watched it. I don't know where it was, but we watched it at home, had a bunch of beers, had a great time. I'd probably rather do that. In terms of the event quality itself and the matches that were on and everything, it's really funny with wrestling because sometimes the matches are great, but you don't get the outcome that you want. And so that kind of spoils the whole thing, even though it was a really good quality event. This time, though, I think all of the outcomes were great. The Rumble winners, I felt, were well-deserved. All of the kind of main events with the championships, I kind of thought what was going to happen would happen. But still, it was really entertaining. So in terms of like the quality of the event itself, out of 10, I'd probably say 7 or 8. In terms of going to the venue, 4 or 5. I probably wouldn't go to something that big again.
I think that's fair. What do you think, Larry?
Like I had a really good time, and I'm really glad I went. I had never been to a pay-per-view. My last live event, oh man, like I went to a couple when I was a kid. I remember going with my mom and dad to just like house shows. But me and my friends, probably like 1999 or 2000, which was forever ago, we went to WCW Monday Night Nitro. Yeah. It was the day after Halloween Havoc. So it was the day after the pay-per-view, and I remember it actually had some cool matches, but it's been 20 years since I went to a wrestling event. Like, so as soon as this got announced, I'm like, yeah, I want to go. If a big event came back to Phoenix, I'd probably go, right? Like, I don't want to go this summer. I'm not going to go out of my way to go to it. Like, I'm not going to go to LA or, I'm not going to travel. But if like SummerSlam or WrestleMania or even Royal Rumble came back in like 2-3 years, I'd probably go again, man. It's probably
only those 3. It's probably only Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, or SummerSlam that would be at Chase Field. If any of the other monthly pay-per-view shows would be at Talking Stick, and if that was the case, I'd definitely go to one of them. Yeah.
See, same. And yeah, that's it too. Like the Chase Field thing, like who knows if they'll even do it again? But I'd probably entertain the idea. I'm with Chris. Maybe like I would say 7, but I'm gonna knock it down a point because it was so long. I'm gonna give it like a 6 out of 10. Meeting the wrestlers was really cool too. We didn't really talk about that, right? Like I met Sasha Banks fought Ronda Rousey for the title, the women's Raw title, and like when she ran out and the 40,000 people were cheering for Sasha Banks, I'm like, I met her a couple hours ago. I'm like, that's pretty damn cool. So like I had that moment where I'm like, this is pretty cool. So yeah, I would definitely do Axxess again too. I if it comes to town, I'm absolutely in.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I think you guys gave people a lot of info. Like if you haven't been before, you can listen to the podcast, get somebody's real perspective on how it's like to go. And these guys are big fans. I'm glad that Chris kind of told us about his history of wrestling and how his granddad sort of got him into it. Because I was going to ask him, he's like a mega fan. He knows a lot about wrestling, more than most people I know. So
more than the rest of the 4 of us combined.
Yeah, I'm glad he was on to kind of like lend his expertise in this episode because it definitely shows.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Bears and Tanks.
Yeah, I agree. Way more interesting than just hear me complain about how long Royal Rumble was.
I missed getting a pizza. Damn it!
It's really hard being the only person that's done it. So it would have been difficult for Larry to carry the entire episode by himself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you're here. So again, if you want to check out Bears and Tanks channel, search Bears and Tanks, and the link is in our YouTube notes, so you can find it. He does some awesome gaming videos that hopefully he'll start doing again sometime real soon.
Maybe
you owe it to yourself to. I was going to say you owe it to. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
If I can find a good way to stream from the Switch, I might consider it. But I'm spending most of my time on my Switch now.
Oh man, the Switch really does need a streaming service because it is sad that you can't stream from that.
Yep, I agree. It's a pain.
But yeah, you owe it to yourself to check out Chris's channel. At least watch him play The Last Guardian. It's very entertaining.
It is.
I think what I'll do is, like I said, I'll do some screen clips of some snippets of that eventually. So that way we can drop that down.
Seems necessary.
Just every
Nice
rage
passion
quit
project.
moment. Like, can we just get like a series of Chris's rage quits? I would love that. Just the like, son of a bitch. And just
Like I said, everyone on this channel has some audio that's just gold. That's just pure gold. So, we got Nate wanting to, he likes that. Larry with the little children. Like, it's just we got everyone that's got some good audio. So,
I know I do.
Yeah, we'll do a super mashup one day because I think everyone would enjoy that because it's epic. It's pretty epic.
I like that.
I like that.
All right, so real quick. So I know one of the things that you were probably were wanting to see, but you didn't. You didn't see The Rock come back, did you?
No.
No.
It about 6 months ago. It was like the betting odds are usually really good ways to know of what's actually happening because people inside always leak stuff. And there was a very brief period for about a week or 2 weeks where The Rock was the odds-on favorite to come back and then wrestle at WrestleMania. But the fact is, like, he's never going to make as much money doing that as he is making all of his movies and stuff. So why would he bother?
It's going to be hard with to come back to wrestling with a new movie coming out here very soon, though, too, right?
And you can't top that Fast and Furious money.
No, that Fast and the Furious money. Not to degrade those movies. They make a shit ton of money.
Well, and to Rock's credit, now we're talking about Fast and Furious presents the Hobbs and Shaw movie. And to Rock's credit, this is the first spin-off of a Fast and Furious, or if you don't count Tokyo Drift, which
no. Tokyo Drift is core, man.
Tokyo Drift is in main canon, man.
Yeah,
that's
canon.
Yeah,
but I guess the thing I'm saying is Tokyo Drift didn't really have any of the main characters. It had kind of that side character guy.
It had the first one.
Dom shows up at the end. Come on.
Whatever. I'm trying to lead up that The Rock has a lot of credit in these movies now because he's getting his own spinoff with Shaw, who is Jason Statham. Yeah, and it's pretty cool.
It's legitimately the way to be like, how can we write to have Jason Statham and The Rock in a movie at the same time and in the full movie, right? Because if you make one of them the bad guy, you can't really have them interact that much, or it kind of defeats the purpose of good guy, bad guy dynamic. So it's
they had a little bit in Fast 8 where they were breaking out of prison at the same time, but there's just not enough time in the other movies for everyone because they've just introduced so many people.
Right. So this is a good way for them to be like, oh, these characters we really like and people really like them and they're really big action stars. Let's give them their own spin-off.
All right. So real quick, to everyone's credit, like I said, I want to get everyone's thoughts on what they think of this movie. I'm not looking forward to this at all in the least bit.
So you don't want to see?
I haven't like I said. My out is I said I haven't watched the trailer yet. But the same point in time is, like I said, the thing that I like about the Fast and the Furious movies, it's neither one of those two characters.
Well, to me, this is one of those Sunday matinee, popcorn flicks. I'm going to go see it when I have some extra time. It looks entertaining. It's a lot of action. And Idris Elba is in it, which is actually really cool because he's a really cool actor. I like him a lot.
Yeah. He's the bad guy.
He's the bad guy. Playing, if you haven't seen the trailer, he's basically playing Luke Cage in this movie.
It's true, man.
That is true.
He's bulletproof and super strong.
Yep, that's Luke Cage.
That's Luke Cage. You just are Idris Elba would make a better Luke Cage than Mike Coulter. So let's go ahead and throw him in there, and let's make a movie where he's the bad guy.
And him being a Superman is quite a departure from the first movies in the series where they were just street racing and stuff.
Wasn't it about stealing DVD players at one point?
Yep, that was the first one.
Yeah. So okay, so yeah,
I was just
so
gonna say,
we go
like,
from stealing DVD players to fighting a superhuman.
the
Yeah.
villains always seem to kind of escalate further and further and further, and this one's definitely the most extreme I think we've seen.
So, so the first thing I said to Larry after watching this trailer, though, and it has nothing to do with the whole ridiculous concept of the story, because honestly, it's a Fast and Furious. Like, they one up each other all the time. It was only a matter of time before we got this, and like, I'm okay with that in the character. I just thought it was funny that Luke Cage got canceled. Now we have him as a bad guy. The worst thing about it is they pulled a Spider-Man Homecoming, I think, in that trailer. God, they showed so much in that trailer that I feel like I think I know the main storyline. Like, it feels like I got shown too much in the trailer.
Yeah, I didn't catch it the first time I watched it, but I watched it back to back. In the second viewing, I was like, they're showing quite a bit, but I know I'm a hypocrite, but it doesn't bother me for this one. Like, would bother me for a Marvel movie. It's just a double standard. Like, and I think those action scenes and stuff where you kind of get the gist of like, okay, maybe they're on the side of a building or whatever. I think there's a whole lot more to that scene and like some surprises that they could throw in. That, you know, you didn't get in the trailer, so you'll still be surprised, you'll still be entertained, where like Homecoming just gave away kind of major plot points, and it just it's just different and probably not fair.
No, so it sounds to me like I have a different opinion.
Oh,
I can't wait for this movie.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I think it looks like Jeremy said, they're not my favorite characters. I don't like The Rock in Fast and the Furious. That was dumb, and Jason Statham even worse, but whatever. But I really, really want to see this movie.
I have a thing for big, dumb action movies. When I was kind of like 14 or 15, I really got into the late 90s, kind of like John Woo films, so stuff like Face Off, Con Air, Mission Impossible 2, just all these kind of really, and then back into the 80s action movies of basically all the Arnie and Sly films. And this is just going to be a rip-roaring, fun, stupid time. Leave your brain at home, grab your popcorn, and just watch things explode. I think it's going to be great.
To me, what it feels like is kind of going the route of kind of the Expendables movies, where you're like, I don't give a shit what the plot is. Like, you make up something that generally puts all these guys together, but you're just putting a bunch of action stars together with a bunch of explosions and a bunch of bad one-liners. I'll watch the living hell out of that movie. Is it good? I don't give a shit. Like, I was entertained.
No, I agree, but I'm all for like the action movies too. It's just, I think the thing that just bothers me about this, it's banking off that Fast and Furious name.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
like I said, and I like those movies and I like that series for what it is, and it's just doesn't sound.
But in some ways, it's good though, because it sounds like this isn't the part of that series that you like, and in some ways, it's kind of excising it so that in Fast 9, those guys won't be in it anymore, and maybe it'll go a little bit back towards what it used to be than relying on them.
I would love that.
Yeah, I think this is a good way to get some of those big action guys to have their own, we'll say, little like pocket. I don't want to say pocket universe, but kind of like pocket series that stays away, and then you can go back to not having, you know, we don't get superhumans in the Fast and Furious. It sticks around with people driving fast cars dangerously and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Or it leads into Vin Diesel fighting ghosts.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, right? Because that's still a brilliant idea.
Yeah, that was an amazing idea from last week.
I hadn't thought of the whole like, let's separate the action heroes. Like that's an interesting take. We'll have to see. Like Fast 9 comes out like next year, I think, and they haven't talked much about it other than the fact that The Rock's not supposed to be in it. So I love this franchise, even when they have slight misses. Like I'm still all in, and so they can't do much wrong.
At least they fixed their titling, because if we had to still stick with the Too Fast, Too Furious style of thing, I would have been. I think I would have been all out.
You would have been too furious.
I would have been too furious.
No, that was stupid.
I actually kind of liked it because I think it was just so gimmicky. I'm like, That's amazing.
Well, they had no idea that like 18 years later this would still be a thing.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, it's
absolutely
a testament to the franchise that has survived as long as it has, and it continues to get bigger. I mean, I know Larry's a mega fan. I've always enjoyed the movies, so it's definitely one of those movies I'm going to check out either way.
The funny thing as well, though, is that we were talking about how the movies changed, like from 4 to 5, and then from 5 they became like action movies. It's only from there that I've seen. So as much as like that might not have been everybody's favorite way for the series to have gone, it's because of that I watched them and that I've enjoyed the last 4.
True. Yeah, and you think about it, like it needs to have fresh ideas, and that's what this kind of provides now. Like this almost expert team of people now that go across the globe doing crazy things.
Yeah. It's that. I think it finally settles the beef that The Rock and Vin Diesel have had for the longest time. There's the Rock can go do his own thing, and then Vin Diesel can now just take over the Fast and the Furious series again, and that way everyone's happy.
Vin Diesel gets to be kind of the big action hero star for, well, let's call it his series, right? Like, I mean, this is Vin Diesel's show.
I mean, he was in the first movie.
Good name. Good.
So, there you go.
He owns it. Knowledge.
Fucking insightful.
Man, I bet Nate, you are a gentleman and a scholar, sir.
It's true though. I mean, the guy
he one time was fast and
it all
furious.
Revolves around Vin Diesel most times. And the guy owns the show.
Hold on. So Ja Rule from Fire was also in the first one. What's your thought on that?
Ja Rule?
Yeah, Ja Rule.
I think he showed his value, and that's why he's not around anymore.
But he was replaced by Luda. So
yeah.
No, you know who my favorite. Okay, well, just real quick, since we're dropping Fast and the Furious characters, I said I still have a soft spot for Hector.
Yes.
Because Hector plays his own character in Fresh Off the Boat.
Really? That's awesome.
So the TV show about those Asian guys, like I said, he said Hector is Hector from Fast and the Furious. It's amazing.
Cool. I like Hector.
That's awesome.
He's way more likable than Ja Rule.
Absolutely. I think that wraps us up this week, guys.
Yeah.
All right. So for Larry, take us away. Like I said.
Oh yeah. Well, so real quick. Thank you again for Chris for coming on and being our special guest. So you're awesome. You made it for a really great episode, dude. If this is the first STS Guys video or you're watching, we record our podcast live on YouTube every Saturday night. Go to stsguys.online, sub us up. You can check us out on Instagram at STS Guys. We're on Twitter at STS Guys. We're on Facebook, at the STS Guys. And I am Larry from the STS Guys.
Chilling like a villain.
Awesome. So for this week's episode 70 of the STS Guys, I've been Jeremy.
Hey, it's Larry.
Hey guys, it's been Nate.
And I'm Scott.
And you don't care who I am because I will be here next week.
And special thanks to Chris.
Yes, thank you
for being on this week's episode. We are the STS Guys. Have a great night, everyone. Bye.